Hey everybody, welcome back to Balance Exchange. I'm Papa Bear here today with
Kr0nus, and this episode we're going to talk about freedom.
Freedom!
Hey, it's me, Rasan. I don't know, man. Huge hole in my,
Yeah,
understanding. My fellow Americans.
Papa Bear here.
As long as whatever you're doing doesn't hurt anyone else, I don't care.
Different perspective of what an interesting topic is than I would assume.
This is Balance Exchange. Oh, that's going to be a good start.
Huh?
That's going to be a good start.
That's like the one from Braveheart, right?
Yeah, Braveheart.
Yeah.
I was thinking, for some reason I went to Highlander, but I'm like, it's definitely not Highlander. That's There can only be one.
Same geography.
Yeah.
Different story.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, we're gonna do it the same way we usually start off with what are you drinking?
So I just had some ice cream. That's keto, and so along those same lines, let's see. So this one's the original lemonade Truly. I'll call that one number 2. We'll have that one second, and we're gonna open up a strawberry lemonade Truly.
Nice.
I haven't been very disciplined on my keto, but these are still what I have in the fridge, so that's what they drink.
They're still good. You know, I drink them even when I'm not keto.
Yeah, they are a pretty tasty drink. So, what are you drinking?
I'm not drinking booze. I did sober. I'm doing sober October, so
That's right.
I'm drinking key lime LaCroix.
Okay.
So yeah, and some ice.
That was your like subtle way of saying like I think I remember asking you to join me on sober October.
Oh no, it's okay. Yeah. No. A lot of people they either forget or just some people tried to do it and they didn't even last like a day or more than. I was just like, wow, all right, well, maybe you should look into that.
I think I saw your dialogue with someone on Facebook about that. They were like, "Oh yeah, I tried, Brian." It's like I think I made like what was it like? It was something like got 3 days out of 4. What did I wasn't? I was like, wait, that means you only did 1 or something.
Yeah, it's like, if you're not ready, I get it, but at the same time, it's like if you're drinking so much that taking a single day off is like fucking you up, then you should probably stop drinking for at least a month. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, and I saw the thing you said too. After a couple of days, you were looking at comparing like stress levels, right? I was about to say heart rates, but your stress levels specifically according to your watch.
Yeah.
And it was saying that significantly better, right?
Yeah, my stress levels have significantly dropped, and my sleep, I'm finally getting some. It's not every night, but some nights I'm actually getting deep sleep. So I usually never get deep sleep. It's usually like less than 20 minutes. And like the second day I did this, I got an hour and 19 minutes of deep sleep. And I was like, whoa, this is great. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
But I don't. I'm gonna go back to booze eventually. I mean, after the month is done. So, I mean, Marine Corps birthday is shortly after that. I have to prepare my liver for that. So,
That's a good point. Take October off so that you can hit it real good back.
Yeah.
We need to probably figure out another thing like we did for last year.
That's how I was gonna hit up Enrique and be like, "Hey man, let's do it again," because last year was a lot of fun, and that's how we went up.
And this time we can both like bring people because that last one was just his guys. We'll see if we can schedule both of our crews of like everybody throughout history and be like, "Holy jeez,
This would be a lot of Marines."
Yeah. Keep the core like 5 or 6 of us in there and just start keep cycling. Hey, look, appreciate you being here. You've been here for 10 minutes. We gotta kick you out and get somebody else in.
Yeah.
Come in, have a drink, get out because we got too many people to bring in.
Well, actually, this time I think I can probably host because I can hold like I think 100 people or something like that on this.
Okay.
So I think it's like 100. Yeah. Because I pay for it, I better be able to have a lot. So.
Yeah, you would hope so.
Yeah. All right, and now what are you reading?
So let's see. We gotta do like kind of the 2-part thing we do sometimes when we do this. It's like what I've finished since we talked last.
Yeah.
Because I finished another thing or two, and then what I'm actually listening to right this minute. So I finished The Next Great War, which we were talking about, which was like saying a comparison of like where World War One was, how it started, and the people are making lots of comparisons between World War One and the current state of affairs, where there's a rising great power and then a long-standing great power that are concerned with that rising power,
Yeah.
So I finished that one. I also finished a book called The Folly and the Glory, which I think you'd actually really get a kick out of.
Yeah.
So it is basically like history of warfare with a specific focus on espionage, sort of. So like, it talks about the history of it, how there's a comparison between the early years of war in the United States and how we didn't really even think about it or consider it. It wasn't a part of normal military culture for the United States, and that how Russia looked at it completely differently. So it goes World War II into Cold War, and then us discovering this like espionage sort of concepts, getting into it, and then up until current day, and how espionage has changed, and how what political warfare is then compared to now, and it's pretty interesting. I think you'd get a kick out of it.
Do they talk about social media in there?
It does.
Yeah, because that's like the modern, you know, spies and just espionage. It's incredible how inept people are in America that are susceptible to just sharing all this stuff that is just it's by Russian bots. It's like, why are you guys sharing? Like, none of this stuff is true, and then they'll complain about, you know, things in America. It's like, oh, why are you making this racial? It's like, well, you're sharing something that is clearly racist, and you don't realize it, or you're sharing something that's clearly wrong, and it's just like, and they'll blame it on the media. Like, well, the media's riling everything up. It's like, no, like, you are the person that's part of the problem. Yeah, the media's a problem too, but you sharing all this nonsense that you do no backstory on, you don't look up any of this stuff, and you just share it out there. You don't know where it came from. I know where it probably came from, but you don't want to do any sort of research. You know, it's just like, it's weird.
Yeah, it's almost like they have the freedom to do what they want with that social media account, and that sometimes, you know, should be informed, and it probably needs to be part of the conversation. So we'll come back to that probably.
Yeah.
And the very last chapter of it, I think, was literally like the whole reason the person wanted to write the book. So then they spent like an entire book's worth of writing, like leading up to trying to make you feel like you were like learning all this other stuff, just so that they could be like, oh yeah, and all this crap happened. In the last section, you're like, that wasn't the whole reason you wrote this. I could tell you were like super excited about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really good though. You get a kick, especially out of the last chapter. So then finish that one out, and then right now I'm currently listening to a Star Wars book.
Oh, which one?
So it's from the Old Republic.
Okay.
And it's called Fatal Alliance.
Okay.
It's actually a fairly new one. And what was crazy is it's been probably at least a year or two since I listened to any of the Star Wars novels. I just haven't done Star Wars. I've done so many other things that have been really fun and entertaining, and I haven't done Star Wars in a while. But as soon as Mark Thompson started reading it again, I was like, holy crap, I remember this guy's voice. This is Star Wars. I remember this guy.
Nice.
It was pretty interesting. I did have an idea, though, as I was listening to this. I was thinking, I want to go back over every episode, and we need to, on the website, put a list of every book that we mentioned. Like, hey, here's all the books that we've read or mentioned in our little "This is what I'm reading" section, so that someone could just be like, oh, that's that book that they said in that episode or whatever.
Yeah, because we talk about a lot of books.
It's a lot of books, yeah. I was like, there were episodes where we spent 30 to 40 minutes before we even started the main topic, at least. Yeah. Just talking about what we're drinking or, you know, what we are reading at the time. I was like, we spend enough time talking about it. Someone should be able to find that in a quick reference guide. So.
I think 2 episodes ago, as you're watching or listening, was an episode just on one book. So, yeah.
Yeah. Whole episode on a book.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the social context of what the book is trying to make a point about, but definitely motivated by a book, I guess.
Yeah.
One way to put it.
I like books.
So what are you reading?
I am currently reading Killing Them Awfully. Oh, I only have 15 minutes left? Jesus. All right. Well, it's almost done. So, I finished. Yeah, well, I mean, it came out like, is today the 6th? Oh, it's the 7th. It came out like 2 days ago. So.
What is it?
It's called Killing Them Awfully, and it's the 11th book in the Good Guy series. So, like, the series... Oh, yeah. The names of the books are, like, they're kind of funny. Obviously, Killing Them Awfully is, like, you know, killing them softly. But, like, the names of, like, most of the books are, like, a sort of punish. So...
Okay.
It's an awesome book series. It's actually hilarious. There was, like, a part where he had to get, like, some monster, and he literally had, like, this ball to, like, capture a monster, very Pokemon-ish. And he literally threw the ball, and he said, big fuck-off monster, I choose you. To, like, capture him. It's silly.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, and then it's a lit RPG, by the way. So it's fun. Yeah, it's a fun one. Every time I need a palate cleanser, I can count on that book to like make me laugh. So, and I finished The Sandman Act 2 a couple days ago, which The Sandman on audiobook is the highest production value of any audiobook of all time, in my opinion. It's incredible. They have a full voice cast. They have full sound effects, full music, everything. The main character, God damn, I forget his name now. He's like the guy that played X-Men, not the X-Men, Professor Xavier, as the younger guy, James McAvoy.
Oh, younger.
The younger one. I think it's James McAvoy, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's like a bunch of other people that are like noticeable voices that are in it, including John Lithgow. He's in it too. So it's like a bunch of people. So yeah, that's what I'm reading and / read.
So if you like the full production ones, like the very first books that came out about Star Wars was like after the end of the Star Wars movies in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and it was the Thrawn series, right? So right after those, it like starts up what would happen right afterwards. It's them the Empire still trying to hold together, even though the Emperor is gone, and it covers this Grand Admiral named Thrawn, and that first book, the audiobook, it was one of the first audiobooks I listened to, is like a 25th anniversary edition audiobook production or something. And it's got full cast, full sound effects. It's like one step away from being the movie. You're literally all the sound effect, everything is perfect. I was like, wow, this is really, really good. And I imagine just when you said that, I imagine similar kind of things, like all the sound effects there, everything you could expect. It's pretty amazing how good those are.
Wasn't Alphabet Squadron like that too? Yeah, full sound effects like that. I listened to that
Which one?
Alphabet Squadron. Did you read that one? It's a Star Wars book.
So there's quite a few now. Like I think they set a precedent with that one where people are like, I want Star Wars books to be like that. I want sounds of doors whooshing. I want phasers. I want lightsabers. Like if I'm gonna listen to it, I might as well have those sound effects. So like he even does this, like has a voice vocoder sort of sound effect when he's talking as someone who's wearing a helmet. Like it sounds like they're in the helmet. You're like, what the heck? Why would you take the time to? Because it's cool. They put that audio production together.
Yeah, it's actually, and Dune was like that too. Yeah, which is
Dune?
Like Dune.
Right now.
Yeah, the book. So yeah, it was. I think that was the first one that I listened to that had like more than just a few sound effects. This one has like it had a lot of sound effects and like music and stuff like that, and full voice cast. So I'm used to just having like one narrator. So
yeah, the same. Or I would listen to ones that have like main sections it's a male character, main sections it's a female character, so you get a male and a female voice actor. And then if the chapter is primarily one of the characters, it's one or the other. But then they're still doing like the voice acting for the other characters.
Yeah.
So it's definitely still cool, but nowhere near like those production ones. I have never listened to the audiobooks of Dune. I've only ever read the book or seen the movies, and now I'm like, man, I really should do an audiobook.
Yeah, check out that. I think it was free for a while. It might still be free if you have Audible Plus. Yeah, trying to hype it up for the new movie. I want to see it, but I'm not going to theaters, unfortunately. I'll watch it when it comes out on HBO Max or something like that. So.
Yeah, that's the same way. I'm so frustrated because I haven't seen Shang-Chi yet.
Yeah, same here. I'm waiting.
It's like,
It's alright. We still got there's plenty of media out there.
Yeah.
To watch. Like What If has been great.
I was gonna ask you. Did you watch?
I didn't watch the latest one yet. No, I'm one episode behind. I was gonna watch it. Well, I can't watch it. I couldn't watch it the day it came out because I do a podcast on Wednesdays. I can't watch it today because I'm doing a podcast today. So I'll watch it tomorrow.
I watched it at 4:00 this morning.
Oh, nice. Well, I have to watch it with my partner, so she'll get mad if I don't watch it.
I had to see it. It's super good. Yeah.
It seemed like it was leading up to something. I was surprised that it was like a story arc,
And they did a good job of keeping that from you for a while, and you're suddenly starting to go like, wait a minute, I'm starting to see, and then it does come together, and you're like, okay, this is a thing. I will say, Party Thor is pretty funny.
Yeah, that one was pretty funny. I was laughing.
Just him in general as a character, yeah.
So at this point in watching our videos, you may or may not know that I am an active duty United States Marine. And I've been doing this for 20 plus years, so I know that it's really important for me to make sure to get this out there. If it's your first time watching this, please stick around and make sure you understand the disclaimer. If you've watched a whole lot of our episodes so far, feel free to go ahead and jump ahead to the new content. So what I need to talk about today is that I am not authorized and have no way of being approved to speak on behalf of the Marine Corps. So any opinion that I give or any concept that I discuss today is the position and the opinion of just me, myself, just a man who has a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's degree in leadership and organizational management, and has spent my whole life looking at government structures and social contracts and how these things are supposed to work, what the philosophies and things behind them are, and read a lot of books on that kind of stuff. And it's definitely one of my personal and key passions. And so when you hear me maybe give a position or a concept on something, that is only my own position. I am not a public affairs officer for the Marine Corps. I am in no way giving what the Marine Corps' official position on anything would be. And honestly, a lot of the topics we're going to cover here, I'm pretty sure the Marine Corps doesn't have a particular position on. So if you do have any questions about what the Marine Corps' policy on certain things could be, you can definitely research that and find those out, or leave a comment or send us a message if you can get a hold of us somehow, and we can maybe be able to answer those questions for you. So with that said, let's get you back to this week's content.
All right.
Okay, so, on to the topic. You want to talk to me a little bit about freedom?
Yeah, I want to bring up the topic of freedom because I've seen recently a lot of people have like a misunderstanding on what freedom really means in America, and they kind of go a little too far with what they think freedom means. They think that they have freedom over everything, and we really don't in America. And it's not a bad thing. Like, I think it's actually a good thing that we don't have absolute freedom, because you can't have like a lawless place, right? You can't just do whatever you want, especially when it affects others. So I think within yourself, yeah, you can basically do whatever you want within your own confines. But as soon as you start encroaching upon others, that's when things need to be curtailed, and that's when people need to like really take a step back and actually start thinking about like how you affect others. And I've just seen a rash of people just like screaming freedom, and they don't really understand like there's rules and laws in America that we all abide by, and they're obviously, because of the pandemic, we've had some new mandates that have come out that are, yes, they're inconvenient, but just because this one mandate comes out doesn't mean that they're encroaching upon your entire life, because there's a whole lot of things that people go through their entire lives that they go within these confines that they're totally fine with, but as soon as they come up with a new mandate to protect other people, other Americans, then all of a sudden it's a big deal. And I find it very odd that it's like that, but I think it's also, I shouldn't be too surprised, because we're kind of sold a bill of goods that America is like one of the freest nations in the world. We always talk about freedom. We bring freedom to other countries. You know, sorry I had to put the air quotes up because we don't always bring freedom to other countries. We try. But so yeah, I just wanted to talk about like the things that you can and can't do, and why is some things acceptable but other things aren't acceptable.
Yeah, something you said triggered an idea that I hadn't had beforehand. I do have some ideas I want to talk about, but I want to stay on what you kind of just said and introduced to stick to it. So let's think about this, right? So you specifically mentioned masks, right? Kind of, basically.
Well, yeah, the mask mandates, yeah.
You're talking about masks.
And now it's going to be the vaccine mandates. They're coming, so, yeah.
Yeah. So let's stick to masks. Masks is a little easier to kind of work with, because it's literally just asking you to wear a thing, right? Put a thing on your face to protect other people. Saying inject a thing in your body, a little bit more of an ask.
Yeah. A
little bit more. But just to wear a mask. Let's even just stick with just wearing a mask, because people don't want to do that. They want to say, you can't tell me that I have to do that, right? When you grew up, when I grew up, how completely comfortable and like every time they got in the car, start the car, seatbelt on.
Yep.
Your parents.
Yeah.
Did your parents do that?
100%. After like a certain time period when it became, you know, because
Yeah.
back in the
But at
early
first,
80s, yeah, it was kind of Wild West. But after that,
and
yeah.
Like cars were the law was like the car has to have the seatbelt.
But
no one was telling the people they had to wear the seatbelts yet, right? But then I remember specifically in Washington, like this huge like campaign to remind people that it was a requirement and that you had to wear your seatbelt, and like the whole click it or ticket stupid sign campaigns and all this other stuff. Like that was all That all happened like at a point in our lives where we saw our parents like, this is stupid. Why do I have to wear a seatbelt? And then eventually wearing seatbelts. And now like, I got in my truck today to move from one parking spot to another parking spot so that I could put my truck or put my motorcycle in the bed of the truck and like instinctively close the door, push brake, start truck, seatbelt on. I'm like, wait, I'm like going across the parking lot. Whatever, I'm already have it on. Just back it up and okay, now take the seatbelt off and get out of the truck. It was like, I've now conditioned myself so much to the point that it's absolute instinct to go like in that sequence, like even just to go across the parking lot. And that was asking a person to put on a thing to help keep people safe, right? Keep yourself safe, really, more than anything. But then that's also us saying, enforcing it in our car, like, hey, put your seatbelt on. Hey, put your seatbelts on in the back. Okay, now we can go.
Yep.
But, that would have been a fight at first. But if you ask anybody today, they'd probably be like, oh, yeah, I wear my seatbelt all the time. Because I understand that it is for safety. I understand that it's a law. I understand that I can get a ticket. Like, all these other things that help influence it. We can talk about fines and who those really affect. But
yeah. Yeah, it's just
because the people who are worried about fines are only one particular portion of the population.
Yeah, because it's over police places, which I mean, read between the lines, brown people. Anyway,
well, and I mean, even if it wasn't, say you're on the interstate and it was just a random person who got pulled over and it was not in a specifically targeted area.
Yeah.
And they receive the ticket and get the $125 ticket for a seatbelt. Like, even for me, like, that's not a crap load of money. It's $125.
Yeah.
But it's still enough to be like, oh, do I really want to spend $125 on something dumb like not putting my seatbelt on? No, so I'll go ahead and cover it. To the point where I loaded my motorcycle today because it was going to cost $150 for the motorsports place, the motorcycle place, to bring their trailer and pick up my motorcycle to work on it for free. Like the probably thousands of dollars worth of maintenance they're going to have to do on the motorcycle. I don't have to pay. But the $150 for them to come get it and take it over there, I was like, I'll figure out how to get it there myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you brought up fines because honestly, if people keep going this route of not masking up and then not getting the vaccine, like they're gonna start doing fines. But this is where it gets super interesting because there's police officers and sheriffs and law enforcement agencies that are just saying no, we're not going to enforce these. I'm like, so when did it become acceptable for a law enforcement officer to not enforce a law because of their own personal beliefs? That is incredibly crazy to me that they can just choose like what laws they decide to enforce or not. It's like if you could do that the whole time, then maybe stop giving out bullshit tickets.
But so there's no revenue being generated by enforcing this law right now or enforcing this mandate right now. So there's no incentive for the police force to do so. So nobody in their organization is telling them they have to, right? So they're able to individually decide. But as soon as the police chief is like, oh shit, we can make some money on this thing. Yeah, hey, you better get out there and enforce those mandates.
Yeah, that's dark and it's wrong, but it's true. It's true.
Sorry.
Well, no, it's one of the reasons why I don't think that tickets should be revenue for the police department. It needs to be, if it's going to be any kind of revenue, it should go back into the community, right? It shouldn't go back into the department because then obviously it's going to put in an incentive for you to write more tickets so you can get more revenue, and it's just come on.
Idea that fixes some problems we've talked about. So ticket is issued and a fine is associated to it. So the geographic location in which you issue the fine, like a very specific like zip code, right? So this neighborhood or town, if you like, depending on how condensed your zip codes are, wherever you actually get the ticket goes to the school district right there.
Yeah, because that makes total sense to me. Yeah.
Like you want to come through this neighborhood with a school zone sign right there in a 25 mile per hour zone and go 60 miles an hour through a school zone. Oh. You're going to get that ticket and that money's going to go to that school.
Yep. But
and then we put money into our schools, which then opposite effect of trickle down economics is like trickle up education. Like you educate this group of people and they'll be able to do better jobs and do all these other things. So yeah, I don't know. You just gave me that idea.
That is a good idea. That's a great idea. Yeah. I think if there was fines for these masks, it'd be pretty messed up. And yeah, the seatbelt thing is a great uh, it's a great metaphor. I mean, it's literally the exact. It's almost the exact same thing, except with masks, you're just protecting others instead of just yourself. You're mainly protecting others, and people still don't seem to understand that. They seem to be very confused on why to wear a mask, or why to wear a mask, and it's very like odd that people are still just so hesitant to do these things. It's like you talking about that that the government can't tell you to wear a mask, but they sure can tell you to put on clothes.
Yep.
And it's literally just another piece of clothing. Like that's pretty much all it is. You put a mask on, it's part of clothes. Like just go walk around naked. If you think you're that free, go walk around naked somewhere. And
could you get away with walking around in just like a speedo though?
Depends on where you are. It's a good point. There's places where it literally says on the door before you walk in, no shirt, no shoes, no service.
Yep.
And they sure enough can kick you out for that.
So did I ever talk to you about Austin Peterson? Did I talk to you about him already?
Austin Peterson, no.
So he was when we talked about the last presidential election where we both kind of, or you, I'm trying to think right now. I can't even think of the guy. Johnson.
Gary Johnson.
Gary. So when Gary Johnson ended up getting the Libertarian nomination, the guy I was going for at the time, his name was Austin Peterson. So he now has a radio talk show in Missouri. He basically does this morning show each day that kind of talks about liberty and freedom and all the stuff that we're kind of talking about too, but from a very libertarian point of view. And one of the things he was talking about was kind of related to this, where it said it's the business thing where is a business a private thing where this private entity, this personally owned property, this business, who should be able to decide what they can and can't do if their business is successful or not. That's based on what they choose to do. And so then it's like it's the forcing someone to bake a cake for someone thing, right? That whole story. It's like, hey, look, we don't want to serve those customers. We shouldn't have to. But what he talked about was the way that that's not allowed is that you're serving the public, right? So as soon as anyone is allowed to walk into that door, because it's just a public customer service kind of process that you've decided to set up your company or your business for, that's where they get in trouble, because then you're now providing a public service and you fall underneath those kinds of laws. But if instead it was like a club that is a paid membership, like, no, you can only come in here if you've paid your annual dues or something like that, then you don't fall under those same rules, and it is a privately owned, a privately managed, a privately maintained business or whatever. And so then you could then say, I only bake cakes for certain people who are members of this club, and then you can only join if you've paid your membership and are a member of the club or whatever. So he's like that's how you could potentially get around that if you wanted to, but no one wants to do that because then your business wouldn't be successful. So that's why you have to be aware of the fact that you are providing a service to the public, and that's why you do need to meet these criteria. You can't be, biased against people and tell them, no, you just can't come in here. But then he also finished up with but would you want to eat a cake from someone who doesn't want to make it for you? I mean,
yeah,
think about that.
That's the other side of it. Yeah, that there's a lot of, that's a whole messy area of your own personal, beliefs and what you want to, should you, just because you sell something to the public, should you be forced to do whatever the customer says? But at the same time, let me just be clear though, I'm not, because we're talking about the guy who didn't want to sell a cake to a gay couple, right? I'm totally for gay rights. So, but I'm just saying, in general though, should you be forced to do something that you personally don't believe in, or you personally have a problem with? You know what I mean? Just because you sell to the public doesn't mean the public can force you to do the public's whim. I think there's got to be a line somewhere. I don't know what the line is, but there's got to be a line somewhere.
So the refusal can't be because of the customer, right? It might be because of what you're asking. You want me to make a cake with a giant dick on it, but I don't want to make that cake because it's the kind of cake that I don't want to make.
Yeah.
But instead, I'm saying I don't want to serve you as a customer because of you, who the person you are.
Yeah, that's
not okay. It's then a bias based on the customer instead of the product. And so that's where I think the line is.
Yeah.
Because we mentioned right now a contentious. I almost tried to say this one isn't contentious when the very last episode we talked about it clearly still is, but if it was racist instead, pretty much everybody would because it would be clear and say it was like obviously verbal and like written down, because if it's not that clear, then it's not racism, which we know is not true, but it's clearly the way most of the laws are written today, is that if it was clearly racist decision, then we would all say, yeah, absolutely, you can't do that. I don't care like what it is, as long as it's still the product you are normally providing. You can't deny it to that customer because of the customer. And so that's the kind of the line, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because I'm just thinking about it, because it's hard for me to justify like what the guy. I'm not trying to justify it, but it's like unless the guy's like literally trying to make you like draw a dick or something like that, like on your cake, or do something that's like, you know, graphic that has to do with like it's still, right. You know. But they weren't. They were just trying to get just a wedding cake. So
right, yeah.
And people should be allowed to get a wedding cake.
The line could be say like, I'm not going to put toppers on it. Like, if I don't agree with gay rights, like, I'm not going to put two dudes on top of the cake. Like, I want to not make that cake that way. But here are the toppers. You can purchase them. You can put those things on. Like, I'll make the cake that is a standard cake, but I don't agree with this particular thing. Maybe that would be, like, kind of getting, like, I'm trying to help, but I don't agree with, you know, the situation, but I'll make you a cake. But I'm not going to decorate it that way.
I hate, like, this topic in general. Like, I don't like it only because it's like the person not wanting to make the cake. It's like, why do you care about the people's personal lives? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really have anything to do with you. They're not harming you in any way. They're not them existing should not bother you at all. And I think that's where it gets like really weird for me. It's just like, let them do what they want to do in their own personal lives. They're not asking you to participate in their personal lives. They're asking you for a product that you clearly sell from your establishment. You know, so
I guess so, to take it to the extreme a little bit, right? To use arguments other people have used, so we can have this conversation. So what if it was a marriage between a 13-year-old and like a 40-year-old?
Well, that's illegal.
And they want you to make that cake. Not in some states.
Is it?
13 is the legal age in some states.
Yeah.
If you have permission from the parents. So say parents come in, yes, we give permission for this person to get married, and there's a 13-year-old and a 40-year-old, and you have to make that cake. Suddenly you're like, this to me is not okay. But like you said, am I just supposed to be like, whatever, it's just the people make a cake. So that...
Well, so this is the weird thing. I think usually when people make cakes, do they actually know who's getting married besides the names? Like, that's like what's weird to me. It's like, they're not like a wedding planner.
Yeah, so if you use a wedding planner, no. But like a lot of people go in and they together choose their cake and like pick out the kind of cake you want and what the icing is and how many tiers, and like you do all this process together and it becomes a thing you enjoy and do together. And if that was who came in and asked you to make it, like most of us would be like, it's okay for them to not be okay with the situation and to feel uncomfortable and not necessarily know what to do and maybe just go back on their own morals and their own values.
Yeah, well, that is really a shame though. There's a place where you can marry a 13-year-old in the United States. Jesus. Probably
may be exaggerating. Maybe it's 14. Sorry.
But still, I mean,
it's very young.
It's gross.
It's very young, and I know the youngest one is with adult permission, is specifically outlined in the law. So like your parents, if you're under a certain age, so and then that's even low too. So it's like 16 and older, fine, and then a certain age under that is like with your parents' permission, and then a certain age is not at all.
Honestly, I've had recent thoughts on the different ages that we allow people to do things, especially when it comes to like making life-altering decisions. I think that they should raise the age of being married. To be honest, it should be like 21. Because and I know you got married young, man, but I know a lot of people that got married young, and I wasn't that young, but like for the most, like you don't even know who you are at the time, you know what I mean, for the most part, for most people. And it's very difficult to expect somebody that was, you know, 18, 20 years old to be the same person when they're like 30 or 40 years old, you know what I mean? Like most guys, at least, I can't speak from a woman's point of view, but most guys are still growing at that, you know, at those ages up until 21. Usually like around 22, 23 is when most dudes start kind of calming down and becoming sort of more rational. And
I feel like there's no way this was right.
What?
Alaska is 11.
That is...
That can't be right.
Yeah.
This got to be a typo, right?
No, I mean,
Wait a minute. And then it says, so general marriage age. I don't understand what this means. So I'm going to have to check a couple of these. So it says the general marriage age is 11. And then minimum marriage age, 12, 14. Age of consent, 8.
you see, you can't expect an 8-year-old to consent to anything. Like,
so with parental consent, a person can marry at 8.
that to
with
me that's
parental consent and judicial approval, a person can marry at 11. This is Alaska.
and this is clearly my moral bias here, but that's just because I'm thinking about like if you've ever had kids don't know what they want at age 8, 11. Most kids at 15 still don't know what they want. You know, they're teenagers. They're still super wishy-washy, and it's just to expect somebody to enter a lifelong contract with another human being, a lifelong legal and financial contract with another human being at that young of an age. They don't know what they're signing up for. There's like literally no way that they know what they're signing up for.
Right.
And that's just excluding the disgusting like sexual part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
California has, it's 18, and then there is no minimum because 18 is the only, and then 18 is like with parental consent, and then there's this massive freaking paragraph of like addendums and extra like, oh, let's talk about all this extra stuff. So age of consent is 18, but if you're an emancipated minor, which you have to be 14 in order to be emancipated, then that's an exception to it. So then if you've emancipated yourself, you're old enough, and a court has decided that you're mature enough to make the decision to, on your own, you are now considered an adult. You are basically considered like you're 18. If you chose to get married at that point too, also an exception for that. Interesting. There's literally like pages of stuff for California. It's weird.
I was emancipated. So,
I almost did. I started almost all the process, but I think I was like a couple months away from being 18. And it was like, wait a minute, it's gonna take what kind of process? And it's gonna take how much? Yeah, never mind. I'm good. I'll be 18 in a little while. So
I just have my.
I did get parental consent or like adult consent on a few things. Like, you could, instead of getting fully emancipated, you could get a form to make most specific decisions if you were under the age of 18, and then have an adult sign that, and then like it was co-signed sort of thing.
That's what I had my dad sign it, so I was emancipated.
Okay.
Because it was just made things easier because I had to go to school, like kind of it took me like 2 hours to get to school and 2 hours to get back, and then I worked like a swing shift. So it was just easier to like be emancipated and like deal with my own things when I was a senior in high school.
You have to be 21 in Mississippi
to get married. Nice, makes sense. Good to go, Mississippi.
Didn't think you'd ever say that on this show, did you?
Yeah. I also think the same thing should be said for joining the military. That's a whole different conversation, though. So actually, no, because it has to do with freedom. But yeah, I think it should be 21.
It does. Freedom ain't free.
No, and I think that there's too many young people that enter these like I said, serious contracts at a very young age when most people don't even know the consequences of what they're entering in. So
yeah.
I think 21 is a better idea. Like, learn to be a person first, and then if you want to join the military, definitely join the military, but know what you're getting into.
What if we did a better job of teaching people what it is to be people?
That'd be a good idea too, but also with that, we'd have to look at the way that we're currently recruiting kids. Have you seen like the new recruiting practices?
What do you mean?
They have the Army is using Twitch to recruit kids, and they're using like these crazy, like terrible, like cartoons to recruit kids, and I'm just like, I don't feel comfortable anymore with like having an adult convince my kid to do anything. You know what I mean? Like if they decide to do it on their own, do their own research, cool. You want to join the military, cool. But I think you've gone through the recruiting process as well as I have. There is a bit of coercion going on in all of them.
Yep.
And I think that kids should not be susceptible to that sort of coercion, especially when they're going to school still. But I still think, like, if you still really want to be in the military, I mean, still 21. I still think it should be 21. For real.
I mean, if
especially given where they're targeting the recruitments for the most part, it's usually in like poor cities or inner cities, and they're recruiting only in certain areas like hardcore. So, yeah.
I mean, it would go with a part of the conversation we had last week too. I say last week, specifically last week's episode. It's not there. That remember I brought up the like you really need to like maybe we should restructure it and all of the like officers that are commanders of things were through the ranks and are selected for some kind of a commissioning program, and then it would make all those enlisted Marines a little bit more mature anyways when they first start, and it would start putting the age of where we have right now our youngest junior officers or whatever and the youngest like enlisted Marines maybe pretty darn near the same age. So then it starts looking even less like that makes sense. Like, wait, was it college that made you better, or was it like 4 more years of life and experience and some other things that made you a better leader? So then maybe now the difference between you two is nowhere near what the gap was before, and it makes a whole lot of sense to say, hey, 5-6 years from now, if you want to apply for a commission and become a lieutenant, like now you have not just 3-4 more years of life compared to the 18-year-olds in right now, but also now 5 years worth of 6 years worth of whatever experience in this service, and now you actually know how the organization works a bit and can lead a bit better. So that ties those two kind of together even more tightly if it was this older age. And so second point, unless you want to hit something on that one specifically?
Keep going.
Okay. So in that same vein though, so what's the legal smoking age right now? Tobacco.
It depends on where you live. It's 18, but it's 21 in San Francisco.
The federal now is 21.
Oh shit! All right, I didn't know that. I don't smoke anymore.
Federal
so,
21 for 18 for tobacco, or 21 for tobacco, along with alcohol. So if you're going to tell me a United States citizen can't choose to smoke tobacco, can't choose to drink alcohol until they're 21 years old, but they can choose to join the military?
Yeah, and it's also super weird when you're in the military, especially right now, when you join and you can't drink, and it's like if you're under obviously unless you're like just a non-drinker at all, which is very few in the Marine Corps. There's some, but it's hard to like have Marines like not drink at all until they're 21. Like it's damn near impossible. So yeah.
Yes. And especially so like there's a part of celebrations and a part of being an organization together who are willing to take these risks and willing to put their life on the line and do all these things. There's a part of those celebrations and a part of that history that includes that. And so yeah, it happens. And I think I've talked about this before. Like, it really frustrates me when we try to like target and go out and specifically try to find people drinking under. Like, just leave it alone.
Yeah.
If they come to you because they did something dumb, then they need to learn that they need to learn to drink more responsibly. Not that they shouldn't be drinking. Like, I get that that's a rule, and I get that that's a law, and I just think the two need to match. If we're gonna let people join at 18, then they should be allowed to smoke and drink at 18. If we're gonna let people, or we're gonna say people can't drink until they're 21, then they can't join until they're 21.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think it'd be better for the military, because I think you would have when I see like a lot of like shitbird Marines, most of them are young, and they have issues that came from before they were even in the Marine Corps, and they're unresolved, and they come out in horrific ways sometimes because they're young when they're mostly enlisted people, and because they're young and they're going through like this very sort of traumatic time being in the Marine Corps, and sort of the worst sides of them come out because they haven't matured yet. And I think we'd be much better as a fighting force if we had at least a minimum maturity. And I think for most people, like being 18, you're not mature yet. You barely know what's going on. At 21, you at least have a better chance of having matured a little bit more and really knowing what's going on and knowing what you want to do. But yeah, at 18, it seems to me it's like incredibly young to make these decisions, especially when you have like basically kids, operating these $1 million, systems. Like it's very strange to me. Obviously they get it done, but it could be done better.
I don't want to make that noise while you're talking.
It's all good.
So did you know that the legal age basically, so in Japan, when you become an adult, it's like we're talking, all of the things then are the same, right? So you're officially legally an adult, and like all things are tied to that same age, and it's 20 years old. So that's when you are done with all of your like, adolescent stuff. So you're no longer a part of school. You are an adult. You can drink. You can smoke. Like all those things are tied to the same exact age, and it's just at 20 years. So because you're in Japan, and you deal with local laws, then for us there the drinking age is also 20.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so for Marines, if you join and you're under 21, if you go to Japan, if you're 20.
Also, if you're a Marine in San Diego, you can just go to Tijuana and get smashed. So I used to do it all the time.
Also true.
Just make sure you have
Just
somebody
gotta
driving
knock
you back that
Yeah.
is of age. So
Yeah, and I think you're aware of this, right? And you're saying you did the same, and it's like, I think that anybody who drinks, like now, right? They're an adult, they're of age, and they drink. If that is a thing that you do, most likely you drank while you were underage. That's just my position on it. I will bet money. I would be absolutely willing to bet a significant amount of money on the fact that you drank when you were underage.
I mean, most people. Well, it's funny because people talk about gateway drugs all the time. But I think if you want to talk about gateway drugs, the number one has to be alcohol. It has to be alcohol. I mean, cigarettes, sort of, not really, because cigarettes. I mean, it tastes bad. The initial like sort of euphoria you kind of get. You only get it when you first start smoking. Then you never get it again. It's like the literal chasing the dragon. Alcohol is. What's up?
And for a lot of people, tobacco like gets you like makes you nauseous. Like you get lightheaded to the point you're like, I don't feel good. Like, and so you kind of get turned away from that a lot of times too.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
Yep. But booze, for most people, not everybody, it's at minimum a social lubricant. You know what I mean? Like you feel definitely more free, to do whatever you want. I mean, but there's a line though that when you're young, you might not know. If you drink too much, you can get a lot of trouble.
You either lose the ability to function properly, right? Or depending on the person you are, like you might just be an aggressive drunk, or like there's a certain point where you turn into, the fighter even though you can't fight.
Yeah, and like that book that I read, the trauma book that I read, it was interesting. Say again?
You said it's The Body Remembers or something like that?
The Body Keeps Score.
Body Keeps Score.
Yeah, it's a book about trauma. I recommend everybody read it.
Yeah.
But I think that for a lot of people that go through trauma, alcohol becomes it's self medication. So you basically self medicate with alcohol. That's what a lot of people do, but myself included. So, have you heard of this thing called the ACE score? It's the adverse
ACE score.
Yeah, the adverse childhood environment score.
No.
So I'd recommend everybody, especially if you think you might have had like kind of weird or messed up childhood, the thing called an ACE score. Just Google the adverse childhood experience score. It's like 10 questions, and see what your score is. Mine is I have a score of 6, which is which is high. So, but I'd be curious on what yours is, especially knowing that you spent some time being homeless. So that'll be interesting to see what your score is.
I'll see. Should I do it now? How fast is it?
It's 10 questions. So yeah, it takes like a couple seconds to read, but I can keep.
Okay. Let's see if I can do this while we talk.
Okay. Yeah, it was interesting because like I was thinking about it like after like this book was kind of helping me internally. This is also why I'm getting some better sleep now because of this book. And realizing like why I have terrible sleeping patterns because I never felt safe like for the vast majority of my life, and that's why I don't sleep well. And then they talked about the ACE score, and then my partner was like, well, why don't you like take it and see like what it says? So I took it and then I showed her the number, and then she Googled the number and she was like, whoa. So
yeah, and I think that there are, like you said, you talk about keeping score, and that probably it's part of the reason. I imagine that it's part of the reason for me not sleeping, but I will tell you, like, the CPAP machine, man, like, makes me sleep so much better. And, like, there have been a couple nights recently where I'm like, I forgot, and I wake up and I look, and I'm like, yeah, I got, like, very little real sleep. And then I'll do that for a night or two because I'm just busy or lose track of what I'm doing or I can't focus once it's time for bed. And then I do 2 or 3 nights like with it on. I'm like, oh my god, why do I ever sleep without this damn thing on? I don't understand why I just get like. Part of me is like one extra step, like I'm tired. I just want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And it's those extra steps of like, put all this crap on so that I can go to sleep, but I'm not actually going to get sleep. I have to keep that in mind. Like, you're not going to get rest if you don't do it. But I'm sure that beyond the physical of whatever is going on, like, there's some part of it that's trauma based. Did I tell you the story about like Afghanistan and my like good friend who at the time was not a good friend when we were in Afghanistan, and how we both realized that that's probably part of it?
That what's like the trauma thing or
The Afghanistan thing.
Oh no, you didn't tell me about this at all.
So we were in Afghanistan together in 2010, and then so 13 months there, and all of the stress that goes along with a 13-month combat deployment. And so 2 years after that, I got selected for warrant officer. He got selected the year after that, and then joined me at the unit that I was at. And we were together working there for the first couple months before we realized like we did not like each other in Afghanistan at all. And working together like in a different capacity as warrant officers, though, we both realized we understood why, and we became really, really close friends. But then conversations a couple months later was like, he could tell I was tired or whatever. He's like, "You tired?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't sleep, man. I'm up at like this time. I barely go to bed by this time or whatever." He's like, "Yeah, I couldn't sleep for crap either. It's all of the stuff of like just never getting any sleep and always being on edge while we were in Afghanistan." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Holy crap, that's probably like." And it was that realization that literally I was like, I slept like a baby that night. Like, just knowing that was it and allowing myself to be like, I don't need to think the same way. I don't need to let my body drive me to that point. But I still hadn't years later let go of that like stressor like to sleep, and it was kind of crazy. Literally just talking about it made me be able to sleep better.
Yeah, that's what the book did for me. Is like I had to think about it, like why can't I sleep? Then I was like, oh, this is why. So let's try to work on that. Yeah, it's crazy how I think that most people they like their baseline is messed up, and they don't even realize it. Like think about it as a pain baseline, because it makes it kind of easier because other things are kind of ethereal, right? So if
those the happy to sad face like pain matrix thing that you have to do at the hospital.
Like the 0 to 10 on the pain scale.
Yeah.
Like if you were constantly at a 3, your baseline is like basically a 3. So your 3 is basically now your 0. So anything worse than your 3, like you'll feel, but you still have this underlying pain it's not too bad, but it's there. You just kind of live with it. But someday somebody figures out that, hey, you're at a 3, and this is what you need to do to like come out of the 3, and then all of a sudden like you're just like, whoa, like your whole world is different. But most people, when it comes to like stress and stuff like that, like they're constantly living like at a baseline that's elevated, and they have no idea why, and it affects their bodies. Like they have no idea why, like their hands are always clenched, or they have like a tick in their eye, or like some of their muscles are all messed up. Like your body, like the book says, it keeps score. Like there's like you can't escape these things unless you like deal with them. So
yeah. So question on this questionnaire thing, I want your opinion on it, right?
Sure.
So what if what it says is specifically gender based, but if roles were reversed, you would answer one way or the other? So like one of these talked about like if your mother or stepmother was in a specific situation. But what if it was the other way around?
I know exactly what you're talking about. If it's the other way around, yeah, I would answer still.
Still say, like, that happened,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I'm thinking, too. I'm like, because it caused the same feelings and the same thought. You're still thinking of the same thing, so.
Yeah, I think I know exactly the question you're talking about.
Yeah. Only, like, one more left.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you gotta think about it, because, like, sometimes we don't think about these things all the time, so I had to think about it for a while.
9.
9? Yeah. See, that's terrible. So
yeah, I think there was only one that I said no to.
Yeah, and if you go and like look up like what the ACE score of 9 means, like there's like all these things that are associated with having like I think it's anything higher than a 5 or a 6, or it's like it literally reduces your lifespan. And it's just like
and I think and I again, I don't have the study or the research, and I haven't read the rest of the stuff too. Just I kind of was like, I'll get the score, see what happens. That you're saying it, that book says otherwise, but part of me wants to say, and it's probably just personal bias, is that you can get past it, right? You can overcome that stuff, but it's still going to always be a part of you.
Yeah, I mean, technically you can, but it's unlikely that you're going to do it on your own. That's the problem.
Yeah. And I think, so for me, I am glad for, tying into our conversation last, like for the Marine Corps, because I can and my family, which came very closely afterwards, and the two are very tightly meshed. That those are the things that made me get through that stuff, or allowed me to have a more important focus, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about.
We did. Go ahead.
Oh, I was thinking about the same thing. I was like, the Marine Corps, like, it did a lot of good for me, and then I was thinking, like, I literally went from like one traumatic livelihood to like another, because like when you go to boot camp, it's pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yes, it helps you, but it also doesn't help you. Like it helps you, like, yeah, like get your life together, but it doesn't help you with like all the stuff that you went through, and like it doesn't even address any of that stuff. Like it just kind of, it teaches you how to just like kind of push forward, but you don't resolve anything.
Yeah, I think it doesn't say to resolve it. What it teaches you to do is kind of like channel your trauma.
Yeah, yeah.
Push forward with it, because you're gonna create your own there. You're gonna create all this extra angst and hatred and frustration, and you're gonna learn to like focus that energy. I was actually just thinking, like, Marine recruiters should honestly just be like, here, do this questionnaire real quick, and if you get 5 or 6 or higher, be like, okay, yeah, you can be
perfect. Yeah.
you're already ready for this. You're set up. You got it.
I bet there should be a study on, like, especially the Marine Corps. I would bet that probably 70% of the Marines in the Marine Corps have a high ACE score.
Probably.
Yeah. Especially the people that I just know. Like, I'm pretty sure they have a high ACE score.
Hey, you know what? When we do our birthday celebration, and we're all trying to be really happy and excited, we should have everybody do this.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible and depressing. No, I don't want to do that. Yeah. I'll do it on this show. I wouldn't want to do that for a fun celebration day.
No, it's because it leaves you with, like, you have to think about things, and most people don't even want to think about it. So yeah. Anyway, back to freedom.
No, yeah. Honestly, notice I answered those questions really quickly, and I'm trying to move on.
Yeah. That's all. Yeah, so like things that we can't do, I guess people are we're just used to it. And I think that one of the things we have to get used to is like these new mandates, and just like, yeah, they suck, but these mandates, to be honest, they're going to be temporary, super temporary. If you look at the pandemic of 1918, that's when it was, right? They all went through the same mask mandates, and they were fine. Like nobody even heard about them until 2020.
And someone said that happened. You're like, what? And then people researched it, and we're like, holy crap, that did happen.
Yeah, there's pictures of people going to baseball games with masks on.
And like I saw signs. It was so crazy. I saw a picture. It was like a 1919 photo of some people in the full like clothes that they wore at the time, like super heavy clothes.
Yeah.
And a sign that said like, put on your mask, right next to someone from like 2020 in like total like 2020's clothes with a sign that said put on your mask. Like it was literally almost the exact same kind of protesting type setup. Like there were people back then even saying like, hey, don't be an asshole, put your mask on.
Yeah. And
there's people trying to take care of each other now too. Like I was super surprised. Like that is cool. Like
back then I think people kind of cared more. To be honest, I think that people were more, well, at least with like, especially with their own like communities, right? They definitely seemed to care more about people back then.
I have to assume that if there was enough of it going on, that there was that photo of someone saying, put on your mask. Like there were some people still being like, nah, I don't have to wear my mask.
Yeah. But I think back then they probably would have taken drastic measures. You know what I mean?
They just shot him with a Tommy gun.
Yeah, there was not many cops back then. They just got their own justice.
So I want to tie, because we are still talking masks. So Japanese culture is very much a mask culture.
So is China too.
If you feel sick, you wear it. What's that?
So is China too. They wear masks all the time.
Yeah. Philippines is not the same so much. Singapore does, but they're still kind of a balanced to Chinese sort of culture tied to it very closely. I couldn't tell you about Vietnam or Thailand for sure. I don't know enough. Like I've been to Thailand plenty of times, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody wearing a mask. So I would assume they don't do the same cultural thing where as soon as you feel sick, you put on a mask. If you work in like a supermarket or a convenience store, you just wear a mask to work because you're gonna deal with hundreds of random people walking in and being right in your face every day. That's just a big risk you don't want to take.
Yeah.
So they wear masks. And I wanted to do some research and I haven't done it. I wonder if there was a time where there was like a law that required it that they were then able to like take away because the culture just got so used to it, it became a part of normal daily activity, and you could stop finding people because nobody was needing to get fined. So I wonder if we did make it like a real thing where people would get fined and would be held accountable for wearing their masks. If after a certain period of time, we wouldn't need to tell people they had to, they would just be so used to doing it that they would just wear masks. Like, no one tells us we have to wear underwear. You just, well, most people. At least if you're going out, you're going to be wearing pants and a shirt, right?
Yeah. I bet it. I mean, it's obviously socially normal there, and that culture, especially in Japan, like they have some of the highest lifespans on the planet. You know what I mean? Because they kind of take care of each other. You know, they realize that they're in these most of Japan, well, at least like the major cities. You know, they're densely populated, and so if something breaks out there, you know, it's gonna spread pretty quickly, and they've handled, you know, the pandemic pretty well, and they've had a couple of lockdowns, I think, maybe one or two, but I think that, you know, they just know to wear masks and to go about their own day, and they've kept their numbers pretty reasonable.
What they did because of knowing how bad everybody else is, they just told everybody else to stay the fuck out. Like, they didn't have to do much internally because, like you said, everybody's wearing their masks. They just told everybody else, like, you're not coming in. Like, you're not coming into Japan because we know that nobody else wears their masks the way we do.
Yeah.
And you guys are all going to be exposed. So until you prove that you're eligible to come in, you're not coming in. So you know how the military stuff is working with us through Japan right now at all?
No.
So if you have orders and you're going to go out there and you're going to say like Iwakuni or to Yokota or to Okinawa, to any of those, whatever, you cannot take commercial flights right now. You have to take a military flight. So you will fly directly from a military airport in the United States to the base that you're going to.
Wow.
Only 2 bases, right? So you'll be on a military flight to Yokota, military flight to Iwakuni, or a military flight like from Yokota to Iwakuni, then to Okinawa, and then you're quarantined on base. So like, otherwise you would have to then quarantine in Yokota, and then take a commercial flight somewhere else if you needed to. But you have to stay there. Like, they make you to go through this process. If you flew commercial, you would have to quarantine in the airport. Like, they have quarantine stuff set up. They will escort you to specific quarantine rooms in hotels nearby, and you'll stay in those rooms until 14 days pass, and then you can go about your business.
I mean, honestly, I think it's good. I mean, especially knowing that it's not going to be forever. You know what I mean? For now, it's fine because I mean, obviously, the death count is still really high, and what's weird to me is like all of the fake, like, I hate saying fake news, but it's just like these fake stories about how masks hurt people, and about how you're gonna have carbon dioxide buildup in your lungs, or it's gonna hold in the virus. I'm like, well, that's supposed to, first of all. So that's
you already have it if it's there.
Yeah, it's a stupid argument, and I just don't know why people have such a problem with a mask now. I know why they have it. The problem is because it's the whole freedom problem, which is the name of the, you know, this podcast we were talking about, because they think they have all this freedom, but it's like, listen, if you go, let's say your appendix bursts and you have to have surgery, or any kind of surgery, you know, and what do you see the doctor do? He washes his hands, you know, very thoroughly. He tosses on some masks, probably a face shield too. Then he works on you. Do you think he's worried about catching appendicitis from you? No. He's wearing that to protect you in case he has something, because it's opening up your body, and it's super easy for you to get infected. And this has been the way.
In your example, even without the actual like communicable disease, just the bacteria and things in your mouth and on your face and on your hands that would then be inside your body that aren't supposed to be inside there are going to cause an infection. So they have to protect you from that stuff. And they do that all day long, every day.
Yeah, and they go through surgeries that can be like 12 plus hours. And when you see nurses and stuff like that, they wear masks all the time. I don't know why people just made up this stuff just so they can feel like they can do whatever they want. Because it makes them slightly uncomfortable. It's like wearing a mask is not. I've been through way more uncomfortable things. It's like every day. Like working out is more uncomfortable for me than wearing a mask, and I work out every day.
Because it makes you healthy.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, so I have a very close, I say family member. Like, this is someone who I always message on Mother's Day, even though not actually my biological mother. One of those people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who is an RN, has been a nurse for a long time, and is very much on the freedom side of this. Like, look, no, like, you can't mandate that we do these things. You can't tell us how to do these things. And so then, as a health professional, it's like, but I'll still wear my mask in the right situations. Like, if it's me and my family sitting at the dining room table here in my house where we're living together and spending 24 hours plus in the weekends together, like, I'm not gonna wear my mask around them because I know that mask or not, if one of us has it,
you all got
there's
it.
a pretty damn good chance it's getting spread around this house.
Yeah.
But if we were all going to go to the store and I know that, maybe I'm either at risk or one of my family members is at risk, I would tell them they should wear their mask. Like, she understands that it is absolutely a medical benefit thing, but it's also like, for the average person, a good percentage of the time, it's really not going to make a difference. You have to be smart about it. But, the discussions we've had a few times was like, not everybody's as smart as that. Not everybody's as well aware or understanding of the actual appropriate times and inappropriate times, and so we have to tell them when those times are. Like, hey, if you're going to go to these places, you have to wear a mask because that's what you should be doing, and that's what she knows you would do, but they just don't know that. So we got to spell out those times for people, and it's still it irks, it rubs wrong for those of us, right, who constantly say, like, as much as possible, leave me alone.
Yeah.
So and I get it. I totally understand her stance on it, and I think that sometimes in order to make a point, you have to kind of like make an extreme point, and then say, now let's talk about realistic. And actually, it can segue, or we can try something else first. Could segue to some of the extreme concepts that I had as an idea to talk about.
Yeah, segue into that.
What's that?
Go ahead and segue into that.
Okay, so have you heard of the state of nature?
No, I mean, I've heard the words together, but I don't know like the specific like.
So the state of nature is a philosophical concept that's used by a lot of like historical philosophers on social science and like political science and anthropology, and even goes into like archaeology, because part of it ties to this idea. So the idea is, imagine humanity before societies, right? So at the point where we are so small, we're either individuals in a single place by ourselves or very, very small groups together, like maybe 2 to 3 individuals at most, right? Like a small family unit is the biggest you can think of in this scenario. And so these philosophers, pretty well throughout history, since kind of the Renaissance till today, some of the biggest ones are... Yep. I heard that too.
Hey, sorry, man.
You're good.
That was it. It was either fireworks or gunfire. I couldn't tell because my headphones were on.
Yeah, I heard it too, though. So there's definitely something like... It sounded like something thumping against the building or something.
Yeah, it was like popping. It had to have been fireworks. Oh, hopefully, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway. Where were we?
Where were we? State of nature?
Yeah, state of nature.
So, okay, put that down. Otherwise, I'm stay distracted playing with Lego. All right. So yeah. So state of nature is like this philosophical construct where you imagine this society before society, right? And it's mostly individuals. So you imagine this completely free of current social requirements and contracts and all the stuff that we have in place between people, right? So imagine just individuals or very, very small units which are dedicated to each other. Like, what does that look like? And so there are lots of different philosophers who have gone over it, and like, so supposedly the very first that's recorded, and it's like some ancient philosophy stuff, was Moji, which is like a Warring States Chinese era philosopher. And then you get into the two that like I was most familiar with, which are Hobbes and Locke. So Thomas Hobbes is probably one of the most famous ones, because there's a pretty common quote that's used to describe where most people kind of take state of nature concepts, which is that I'm just going to read this, all right? So in this state, every person has a natural right to do anything one thinks necessary for preserving one's own life. And life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Right? So this is the way that's a very, very commonly quoted line when discussing the state of nature. So most philosophers kind of go with this part of the state of nature as their starting point, and then it's about describing how do we get from there to here, and then what are the things that make this work so that we don't end up there. That's kind of the way that philosophy goes a lot of times. Like, okay, so if you can imagine, a place where it's just you and you can do whatever the hell you want to, and you have all of the freedom technically in the world, do you really have freedom, or do you have a lack of obligation? Do you have and so then it's really this discussion on what do all of those things really mean if you think about it from this point of no society to getting to today, and then what are the things that are worth preserving in that like dialogue, I guess. So it's a pretty cool philosophical construct to use to have this conversation on, like, what does freedom really mean? Because does freedom mean being in a state of nature and having no obligation to anybody else and just doing whatever you want to preserve your own life?
Yeah, I don't think so, because that'd be nobody would want to live like that. You really wouldn't. It'd be like what was that movie where they had Wilson? He got stuck on a plane. He got stuck on an island.
Talking about the island specifically, right? So that's
no, not
Lost.
It wasn't called the island. It was
Lost.
Castaway. No, Castaway.
Oh, with Tom Hanks?
Yeah, he had the freedom to do whatever he wanted. With Lost, that's actually that's a step further away from freedom, because obviously there's more people there, so you can't do whatever you want. But with Castaway, he could do whatever he wanted, but it was limited because obviously you rely on other people to advance, your various pleasures in life, and without them, you're kind of lonely. You know what I mean? But you can do what you want.
And there was one other one amongst this that I thought was salient to the discussion. I'm trying to find for sure the right quote on it. So one of them basically, I'll find the name here in a second. So the key difference he had was that there's no real way that ever exists, right? So humans are naturally social creatures.
Yeah.
So it's almost impossible for that to have ever actually occurred. So while it is a valid philosophical construct, obviously that didn't ever actually happen. So we should start with what would be those first early social critical ties, and it's that family unit piece. So what he says is, you still would be concerned with survival. He still agrees with Hobbes saying it has to be about survival in that early state of nature, but you still have that small family unit, and that's why conflict comes immediately, because you now not only have your self-preservation but your family unit preservation, who are working together, even if it's a tribe, say it's 3-4 families, who are working together because that's natural human society. We're going to work together because we've agreed to do so to help each other survive. I'm going to provide food for all of us. You're going to provide protection. They come up with these agreements.
Yeah.
But then when there's the them versus us, right? The us versus them thing, and it comes back to this, the same things we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
Then now there's conflict between this group and those because of this state of nature. We have to agree to protect and take care of each other. And it seems like they have a different contract, even though that's probably the exact same contract inside their tribe. It just seems to conflict with us because of a limitation of resources or capability for us to continue to take care of ourselves in our tribe as long as they still exist. So that's where conflict comes from. So that was, I'm going to look for a second and see which philosopher. I want to say it was Rousseau, but I want to double check.
Sure, sure. No, I mean it's interesting when you talk about. It's something to think about it on even like a family level when we're talking about conflicts. It's like just imagine like if you have kids, um, we'll talk about kids, then I'll talk about like a partner or a spouse or whatever. But when you have kids, if you want to, you can't even have true freedom with your kids because there's times where you don't want to do what your kid wants you to do. You know what I mean? And for whatever reason, like you don't want to do it, but you want to make sure that you raise a good person. Like that should be the goal, is to raise somebody better than you, right? That should be the
Yep.
goal for everybody to have with their kids. But it's like you want to help this child grow up to be, a functioning adult. But within that contract, you have to kind of, bend your will to theirs by providing for them. Because there's times like in the middle of the night when a baby's crying, you probably don't want to get up to like feed them milk, but if you don't feed them milk, there's dire consequences because they could die of malnutrition. But if you had true freedom, would you really do it? If you had no obligations at all, would you do it? And that's when it comes to like a moral issue, and I think that's what on a base level people don't really seem to understand. It's like when you see people like we'll fast forward in modern society, when you see people like in a grocery store where it says wear a mask, and they go in and don't wear a mask, and they get mad when somebody asks them to wear a mask. It's like, well, listen, like you're going into this place to participate in society. You need these goods to survive, but you don't want to fulfill your part of that contract by doing what they're asking you to do to keep them safe. And people don't understand that that's incredibly selfish, that you're imposing your will on others, but you're not willing to possibly even consider them imposing their will on you to protect themselves.
You want a sad kind of correlation to that? So people needing to go into these stores for things that they need for sustenance and then refusing to wear a mask because of the concern for others. Did I tell you we went to Kane Brown concert this last weekend?
Yeah, I saw you went.
And so you had to wear a mask, and you had to have your vaccine or have a negative COVID test within 72 hours of going into the concert, right? And people would still walk in, like, don't have their mask on or be kind of in line without their mask on. Anybody there said, hey, you need to put your mask on? Mask on. They sure didn't want to get kicked out of this concert.
Yeah.
It's like, you put your mask on for that.
Yeah, I think this is like, we'll have to add another, because there's reoccurring themes with this podcast. I think it's obviously Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's what was the other one? There was like 3 of them.
Us versus them.
Us versus them. I think the next one it should be social contracts.
Scarcity versus abundance.
Yeah, scarcity versus abundance, and I think social contracts. That's another thing. That's 4.
And infrastructure. Infrastructure is sexy.
Yeah. So there you go. 5 reoccurring themes that pop up a lot, and they all have to kind of. They're not interchangeable, but they all kind of like support each other. You know what I mean? On a certain level. So I think that's interesting when you talk about societies, that these things have to like. These are recurring themes in society that people just don't even recognize. I didn't recognize it up until we started having like a bunch of conversations. So.
Yeah. And what I think the key piece of the us versus them, which I feel like was kind of where you were pulling this one, is that the only reason that continues to be a theme and continues to be a part of this is not in order to create conflict, right? It's in order to create unity amongst the us, right? So when you say us versus them, you're talking about it from the group that is us. Like the only way that statement makes sense is if I say us, I'm talking to someone who is a part of us versus them over there.
Yeah.
And it's not so that we can say, because I actually have a problem with those people or problem with that group, or that group is actually has anything wrong with them. They could be literally the exact same group of people, doppelgangers of us. But the goal is to make sure that we are united and strong and taking care of each other. And that first part of like that state of nature version I told you about, where, hey, we have to agree, like we're going to take care of each other. And that's how we survive in this state of nature. And one really key way to do that is to be like, if we don't work together, they're going to take us out.
Yeah.
And that's super easy and primal. Like we can understand that, and people will work together. And then suddenly, like, we have a unity, we have a group, we have society, and we can come up with rules. We can agree to all these things that we would not have been able to make happen if we didn't have that ominous thing over there to talk about. So
Yeah, especially when you look at like modern times. This is like probably the sketchiest time period that America has had since like World War II, in my opinion. Maybe the Cold War,
I was gonna, yeah,
but it's super sketchy right now because not only have we had like these external attacks on our democracy, but we also have this weird separation within the United States, where it used to be us, well, sort of, on for the most part us, right? We used to kind of agree on things, but now like there's like this huge divide in America right now where we really need to come together because there's a whole bunch of issues that are external to the United States that could come down and like screw up a lot of things, but we're squabbling over putting a piece of cloth over our face. Can you imagine if we had an actual emergency in the United States? Would we come together at this point? I don't know. Like, to be honest with you, I don't know.
I mean, I tend to say yes because I think it would be that unifying thing to easily point to the them and make us back to being us again, and that's where that's where that whole concept works. It works well. That's how humanity works. So if that kind of thing happened to the point where you could easily point to it and be like, oh, look at that, and we need to be us, and people would rally. Even when we didn't have a for sure like validated it's them over there, like we knew it was someone else, for September 11th 2001, like
Yeah.
someone attacked us, whoever that is. Whenever we figure that out,
We're gonna get 'em. Yeah.
like wait till we get them.
Yeah.
And there's I can remember it. Like I was in Pensacola, Florida, and I can remember driving to and from school, and like the only flags around were the ones on base, like that post flag, like the big command flags. Those were the only flags around. No one had flags up.
Yeah.
And within a week, trucks with flags everywhere, like everyone had flags up all over the place. It was insane. If you weren't alive or old enough to like actually witness it, there are videos, but it was still totally different to have been there and seen it happen and see those flags up all over the place and feel how like strongly the country was united for that period of time right afterwards. It's pretty crazy.
That is crazy, but I mean, what's really weird though, I mean, for me is like, I guess maybe it's because it's a virus that's killing people, and you can't really go to war with the virus, even though they try to like go to war with COVID, but you can't. I mean, maybe that is it. We don't have a them, but we definitely have over 700,000 deaths. Like I would have thought that would have brought people together. Like you would think that, life is sacred, and that
so, but won't you argue that people did try to make it about an us versus them at certain points in this whole thing?
Say that again.
So was there or was there not dialogue in plenty of media about it being about this is from them over there?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it should be about it being about from them.
But that's when it got weird though, because then it became like them, but then it was like, then it became internally us versus them. It's just like,
yeah,
it's kind of like they it's like someone was pointing a gun at something and they just like moved to the left, like way far to the left, and like shot the wrong thing. It's like, oh, we got him. But it's like,
well, or I would say like you say it's about someone shooting a gun at someone and then blaming the gun.
Yeah.
Like, but okay, we missed the target there. Like there was a person who shot that gun, so it's like, yes, if we try to make the conversation about it came from this country, and you turn it around to make it like, well, it's about those same people who are already in this country, but like, what? That doesn't. No, they were still here. So how is it not? You're missing what we're trying to say.
Yeah,
right?
there was.
You say like that person shot somebody. Oh, then they shouldn't have those kinds of guns.
Yeah.
How is that not the person who shot the person? Like,
yeah, the rhetoric that comes around. I mean, the whole gun. That's another freedom thing that I want to talk about.
yeah, let's talk about freedom of guns.
Yeah, because we have freedom of gun. We don't really have. We have some freedom with certain guns in America. In certain states, you have more freedoms, but you don't have complete. You can't buy a goddamn minigun, even in Texas. Sorry.
I was gonna say, especially in California, you only have some rights with some guns.
Yeah, only with some. So, and I think that, to be honest with you, I think that everybody should need to take at least a test to own a firearm, to know how it basically operates. And if you have kids, you should have some safety measures, on those firearms. And
yeah.
you know, but people get mad when you talk about it, you know.
So like, here's how those kinds of rules would work, right? And this is where the like law-based political scientist part of me comes out, where like, so say we require certain safety measures, like I have my guns locked in a secure thing inside my house with specific access required, so that way the kids are kind of protected, right? So say that's a law, which it is in California for sure. Like it has to be in like a secure space. No one's gonna like be going around and checking everyone's house and like specifically looking to cite people for that rule, right? That's not how those kinds of rules work. How it becomes a rule is when something else happens.
Yeah, and
you
they
come
kinda
into
add on
this
to it.
house, you're looking for that thing, and you're like, hey, by the way, you're going to need to get cited on this also. So then you know that that's potentially a citation you could get, and so then you try not to do that because you don't want to get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
That's all. So I got to tell you a story. So Logan, my son, who's 19. I was like, is he 20? No, he's not 20. Maybe he is. I can't remember. No, 19. Because we were talking about him being not a teenager anymore, not just the other day. And we're like, oh my God, that's crazy. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
And it's like we're not even that old, and we have older kids, you know.
yeah,
Because my oldest is about to turn 19, so yeah.
yeah, and then so next year my son will no longer be a teenager. You're like, holy crap. So anyways, he sends me a message because we've been bothering him, like, you need to tell us what the hell you want for Christmas so we can start planning this out and getting stuff here so that when you come here we have gifts for you. So he messages me last night. He's like, hey, I know what I want for Christmas. Sends me this link, and I open it up, and so for only 94,000 Great British pounds, you can buy a Russian tank. I was like, okay, super cool. And actually, that's not a bad price. But hell no, I ain't spending 94,000 pounds on it. But you could just go buy a tank right now.
Yeah, I've seen one driven around California. Obviously, it doesn't shoot, but it's a tank.
I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't think you'd be able to register it as a firearm in California.
No. You'd have to it'd have to be what do they call it? Not decommission, but basically they have to disable the firing mechanism on it. Probably just take the whole barrel off. So.
Oh, then it doesn't look like a tank.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
Anywho, sorry.
No, it's all good. But yeah, it's like, firearms are very, yes, we have the Second Amendment, but yes, there's a lot of firearms that you cannot buy in most states, and nobody really has. Most citizens are okay with those laws. I'm not okay with I don't like the way that we have like the assault, quote unquote, assault rifle ban, because I think it's stupid. Assault rifle, just the name is stupid, and what makes it an actual assault rifle is really stupid. It's a pistol grip, it's a compensator, a detachable magazine, and there was like one other thing that was dumb. What was the last thing?
Collapsible buttstock.
Yeah, something. But these are all things that just make it easier to control. So why wouldn't you want to make somebody more accurate? I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Because, so, I mean, you want my answer on it. It's because the government would benefit from making sure the citizens don't have the ability to accurately fight back against the military that's trying to tell the citizens that they need to do things that, are beyond the scope of what should be able to be directed by a government.
Yeah,
Some people think that's freaking wearing a mask, but it's not that. Like it's much further than that. Like
yeah, I think
even
go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish that.
I'm done.
Sorry.
I'm done.
Well,
I was.
But when it comes to the whole defending us from the military, if you're a citizen, there's like 2 points. Like first of all, you're never going to get anywhere near the sorts of firearms that the military has in general. Like you're never going to be able to buy an F-22. You're not going to be able to buy a bomb to drop it on somebody's house. Just not going to happen. So
No.
The rifle is not going to help you against that at all. And the second point is that people seem to forget that America's military is made up of citizens. And so asking former citizens, well, there still are citizens, but former non-military citizens that became military members to fight against their own citizens is a hard pill to swallow for likely a large portion of the military. So if you actually did if shit really hit the fan and they asked the military to like literally start destroying their own citizens, I don't think it would fly with most of the military. That's my own honest opinion.
I mean, it worked during the Civil War.
Yeah, but we're way past Civil War.
Are we?
Yeah, I think
you don't see any scenario where a civil war could happen again in this country.
I think it could happen, but I don't think that the military would. They would try to quell probably some skirmishes, but I don't see the military going out en masse and like kicking ass, against all of its citizens. I just don't see that happening. Because just think about like where we come from. Like, what if they sent you to like your hometown to go like just subdue your hometown? Like, I wouldn't do that, and I would go to the brig, like, or might be charged with treason, but I would be very uncomfortable with like literally using force against my own citizens and something that I really didn't believe in. So
have you watched The Rock? I have to assume you have.
Yeah. They talk about the old movie, like back in the with what's the guy's name?
Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Freaking what's his name?
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage, yeah. So there are aspects of that which are absolutely asinine and ridiculous. But like the parts where that general talks about like our oath is to defend, and I think it was actually the Navy SEAL commander or whatever who like infiltrates, and he's talking to the general, and he's like, General, our oath is to fight all enemies, foreign and domestic. Like, you are here and you are fighting against us. You are doing things that are not safe, and it is my oath and my obligation to fight you. Like, I have to. Like, that's what we're supposed to do. And so that's an oath that we took. And so say if I said that, citizens were surrounding a capital of a state, whichever one it is or whatever, and we're going to like kill all of the representatives for that state legislature.
Yeah, that's different.
If a certain thing didn't change, like if they didn't remove that governor who's telling them they have to wear masks, I'd go there and provide military presence to tell them that's not okay. Like, we can find a better way to solve this problem as a society. Because I agree that I think we can do that. And that's part of what military provides, is the ability to be like, hey, let's make a smarter decision than this one that you're doing right now. Let's say instead, it was that Alaska wants to tell us we all have to allow 11-year-olds to get married, and we should probably marry all 11-year-olds off as soon as they turn 11. Like, no, you can't tell us we have to do that. And I would be okay with fighting against that mandate as well.
Yeah, I mean those are obvious ones, right? But what are there ones that you weren't comfortable with? Like, I would have to think of like a scenario.
Say a tax percentage is too high.
Yeah, and like a city revolted, and they're not killing anybody, but they're definitely not paying taxes anymore. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, so then I'd be okay with a blockade, right? And a what's it called when you surround a city and don't let people in and out and don't let supplies go in and out?
Isn't that a blockade?
Blockade is naval, technically.
Oh, yeah.
A siege, right? So to besiege the city, like, you can't come in or out. You want to set up your own little autonomous zone? Great. You're not getting anything in or out of it.
Yeah.
Feel free to try to survive on that 4 city blocks.
But then what if they like said, well, you have to like, maybe start killing people or something like that? Then it's be like, what? At some point, there's going to be a moral issue that could happen to where you might be like, I don't know,
So then then those members who are a part of the military can be like most militaries throughout history and be the 70% of soldiers with a rifle in their hands who don't even fire their weapon.
Yeah.
There's some pretty serious studies in some books that you don't like.
Yeah.
They talk about how most soldiers don't even fire their weapons.
Yeah, but either way,
although I think that one was on killing, which you probably should read. On combat, I get that you don't like it because the author, but
I have on killing still in my queue. It's still there. It's downloaded. It's there. I'll get to it. But yeah,
some good stuff.
I think that when it comes to like, if the military actually had to use force against the civilian population wouldn't really stand a chance. So when people talk about, well, we need our rifles to protect ourselves from the military, no, because you're not going to stand a chance.
But it depends, right? So in that scenario I gave, where they're making a point, you're not going to make a point with a .22 handgun.
No.
So if we want citizens to be able to stand their ground to some extent, and I know that might not be the right term, but to be able to stand their ground on certain positions against the government, they need to have at least enough firepower to be like, you really could clear that entire city, or at least that entire block, before we can really figure out exactly strategically what we're willing to do. It's probably not bombing the city also, because then I'm kind of defeating the purpose and doing your job for you. So it becomes a lot more difficult when you limit those weapons. And that's part of why that rule was put in place, is like, you can't let the government tell you you can't have firearms, you can't have the ability to defend yourself against that government, which could be oppressing us. And I would be willing to bet that the tax rates in many states and in general across the country, the founding fathers, like that generation of Americans, would be like, holy crap, you're paying what to the government?
Yeah, I think on that, obviously, I would hope for different means to like resolve that. But yeah, we definitely are not living the original intent of the founding fathers. Like, I'm leaving out obvious, issues with like the way that we were founded when it comes to like paying taxes, and who pays taxes. There's a huge issue with that. So when people want to talk about, all of our amendments and all of our rights and blah blah blah, it's like, well, why don't you look at like who's supposed to be paying taxes in America? It's not supposed to be every single citizen. It's not. Prior to World War II, I've said it many times in this podcast, the average citizen did not pay taxes. It was only the wealthy that paid taxes. And after World War II, we went to a war economy, and they decided that everybody in World War II, I can understand paying taxes. I got it. Like, we definitely had a mission to complete. The mission was accomplished. Everybody came home. We had to keep the taxes for a little bit to rebuild the nation. A couple of pet projects got that, but after that, they should have reverted it right back to the wealthy people paying their taxes again. Because right now, they're not paying hardly anything. Like, some of them are paying less than 3% in taxes. And some of them will argue, oh, well, I'm paying 53%. Yeah, you're paying 53% on your income from whatever corporation that you happen to pull that income from. But you're not pulling any taxes from the money that you borrow from these banks at all, because nobody pays taxes on a loan, right? You might pay interest, but you get preferential treatment on your loan interest rates because you have money. And there's all these things they do to get around all these taxes. So they're paying less than all of us are. So I think that if we went back to a system to where the citizens were paying less in taxes, and the wealthy people and the corporations were paying more in taxes, then we'd be way better off. I was watching a video the other day. Are you aware that the car companies are the ones that kind of screwed up, like the way that, like, our whole public transportation system, and that they're the ones that got us to pay taxes to pay for the roads?
No, so explain that.
Yeah. So back in the day, it was like back in like right around when cars started first getting invented, the vast majority of people, like in cities, they would use a public transportation to get around. They would just use like buses or mainly trolleys and stuff like that were like on tracks. And so most of the roads that we have today, they first originally were made from tracks that were used for public transportation. Well, car companies came around and they decided that they wanted to start getting people to use more cars, obviously because they wanted to make a profit. And there was a guy, I forget who it was like one of the owners of like GM. He ended up being like the Department of Defense head, and he decided to take money from the military and use it to start building roads. And then they were like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take the roads that were formerly used for these trolleys, and we're going to tear up all the trolley tracks so you can no longer use the trolley tracks, and we're going to build roads. And you're going to use the money that you're going to get to build those roads are going to come out of your taxes through fuel taxes and state and local taxes. I was just like, whoa, are you serious? And this is why, to this day, if you look at other countries that developed the cars around the same time as us, that they have an awesome public transportation system, but we don't. Because if you look at all these other, like Japan, China, a lot of places in Europe, they have like these high-speed rails. They have excellent public transportation, but we don't. And the main reason why is because of the U.S. automotive industry. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, like, I will tell you, definitely Japanese, Korean, like mass transit systems are really nice. Not just like efficient, but like always clean.
Yeah.
Like, I loved traveling those. Paris? Oh hell no, that was disgusting. Like there was like people literally taking a shit and in the station while we're like, oh, I have kids here. What are you doing? Like, oh my god, like we need to get on this train. Kids go over here. Like,
It's like you're in the Bay Area, like on BART. It's kind of like that. Yeah, yeah. People
It is
shooting
pretty
up,
terrible.
shooting up on plane on BART, but they're just freebase.
We just went to LA last weekend for that concert, and there were several areas, and this was something Enrique was saying too. He's like, and I think he said it in that last podcast that it's really disheartening, like to look and see all the homeless like camp areas and stuff. You're like, this is not normal.
No,
This shouldn't be this way.
it shouldn't, and they're not doing enough meaningful things about it, and that's the problem. They're doing stuff, but nothing is changing anything. It's just getting worse.
How free would you say those people are?
They're totally free.
So if you don't have the bottom tier of Maslow's hierarchy taken care of, are you free to do what you want? Or are you really struggling to try to just survive, and that doesn't really necessarily make you free?
Well, that's the thing. Is like if you're free on that level, then yeah, I would. There's like a thing where it's like you're free, but also you're not getting your needs met. So that is a serious problem. Yeah.
I'd say the one thing you can say for sure at that level that you're free to die.
Yeah.
You go right over there and die. Free to do so.
I mean, that's the only thing.
And it frustrates the crap out of me. Sorry, I maybe not that didn't come out of there correctly or sound right, but that's definitely it frustrates me, and I don't like it.
Well, I don't like the way that. I wish we had the podcast that I screwed up because we talked a little bit about this. Well, we talked a lot about this on that podcast. Just like the homeless problem, and it's just like it's a problem that people just can't really seem to like wrap their head around. And I think that one of the problems with the homeless issue is that on some level, society is going to have to make some concessions to people that are homeless. And I know that it comes down, and a lot of people they fall back on like their moral obligations to what the homeless are doing in their personal lives. And I'm like, I'm not really interested in what they're doing in their personal lives. What I am interested in is getting a functioning member of society back. And whatever that might take might be uncomfortable, but let's get to that place. They're obviously living an uncomfortable life. Let's do what we can to fix that. There was a quote that somebody said the other day that I totally agree with is, let's do the best we can to at least lessen human suffering. And I don't think that we're doing that with them.
No, and I, like you mentioned earlier, I don't know that it should be on those who are making, less to be the ones who take care of that. At least not to carry most of the burden. But like they are who will, right? They're the people with the compassion and the concern and the care that would be willing to make this kind of an agreement are going to be the people who probably aren't the most likely to be able to afford it and not worry about it, but that's who's going to end up carrying that burden.
I mean, you know me, the first step would be UBI, but I'm just saying. I think that would be the most meaningful thing. And instead of having like that would be, because I'm not interested in most of the overarching, like, this will work for everybody. I think UBI would be like, it should work for the most amount of people. But we also need to take a look at this on an individual level, because I think that one of the problems with trying to end the homeless situation is kind of lumping them all together as if they all have the same needs.
Yeah.
Because they don't. Because they're human beings. We all have different needs. And so, yeah, some of them are drug addicts. That's true. Some of them are mental issues. That's true. But some of them, society just kind of left them behind. And they just couldn't make enough money to participate in society anymore.
And now I'm remembering, too, something from the podcast we lost, where I think we've probably done it a few times in this and I didn't even realize it, is that instead of saying the homeless or whatever, right, it's people who are homeless.
Yeah.
Or homeless people, because by using that general term of saying, like, it defines them by their homelessness instead of identifying, like you just said, it's like there's something else going on that potentially they would need help with, and that would be what would help them with their homelessness. And instead we still just say that they are homeless, and that is the thing that identifies them, instead of focusing on the fact that they're people and they happen to be homeless, and we should probably be working to fix that.
Yeah, like I wonder if
I forgot
anybody, I wonder if there was like any studies of like somebody just went out and just like asked them, hey, what do you need? What do you need to put you in a better situation in life? If you need a home, would that help you? I know some of them might be fine with their situation, and we're just gonna have to accept that. But some of them probably have some needs that they need to have fulfilled that they don't know how to fulfill them, and that's when society should help them.
Yeah, and I can't remember what I was either reading or I think it was a show where like someone was trying to get a job but they were homeless, and you had to put your address like on the form for this job application to be able to get that job. And it's like, what do I put as my address? How do I get out of this spot that I'm in if I can't even like technically even apply for a job? Like I don't have a way to tell them how to contact me or anything about this. And and then you're just frustrated and you just leave that job, like chance at that job, because you're like, I don't even know what to put down here right now. So like something as simple as that, like if this is a homeless camp, here's their address and there's a mailbox out front, y'all can just all get mail here. We can solve it with the post office. We're going back to episode 1.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, people not having basic things like being able to get mail and having an address. That's something that people don't even think about. That's not on anybody's radar. Because we all just take it for granted. It's like when I think that most people that talk about freedom in the context that I talked about in the beginning, there are people that probably have they have more freedom than others because of they have their needs already met, and they're already at a certain level to where they have mobility in their life. But there's other people where they don't have that same sort of mobility, that they literally have less freedom by virtue of just having less resources. And I think that most people, they are so inept that it doesn't even occur to them that people like that exist. It's like when people just say, well, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But like, man, if you don't got boots, like it's pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, and I think that it's not going to be a single solution, and that's where I think simple little ideas like that silly little one, like what if that area just had an address? Like, okay, let's start by telling these people, hey, look, we're going to put a mailbox here for those of you who want to get out of here and need an address in order to have a job application, and you're working to try to get there. You can use this. This is the address here, and I had this. So Cindy was watching Chicago Med.
Mm-hmm.
She loves there's 3 different Chicago-based TV shows that are made by the same guy who did Law and Order that cover the fire department, the hospital, and the police force. And they kind of all interact with each other in certain episodes.
Yeah.
So she was watching Chicago Med, and one of the doctors' mom is currently homeless, because a lot of those shows are trying to handle social issues and address them and talk about them, which I love. I love that they do that. And she meets up with her mom. She's given her some money so she can take care of something she needed to take care of, or whatever. I missed that part at the very beginning of the episode. But then she's like, Mom, can we go get dinner? It's like, we don't have to go sit down somewhere, because I know that makes you uncomfortable, but can we just get takeout? We can even come back here and eat, at wherever she's at her little tent place that she had. And she's like, yeah, that'd be nice. Let me grab my backpack. So she goes to her little kind of makeshift tent thing and grabs her backpack. And I was like, to me, I said, I wonder what the culture is like in these areas, right? Where people are homeless and they're living in a general space together, and they know that, do they respect each other's space? Is someone going to move into her little hut when she's gone for an hour to go get dinner?
Yeah.
And my natural instinct was probably not. These people probably do have a great deal of respect for each other's little bit of their own little world. They're not going to go take that space over. They're just not.
Yeah, I mean, when you're living sort of on the fringes of society like that, you have to have some sort of code. There have to be some sort of natural code to live by. Because if you don't, it would get dark quick. And I'm sure there is dark stuff happening.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It's probably I would imagine if something dark did happen, that there's probably some sort of code that deals with that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, that person's gone. I would say that's probably about as close to the state of nature as our modern like society has. Is you could go look at those places and you could honestly see like what is it like when society is smaller and like is more focused on survival and is close knit. And I guarantee a lot of them are like it's us in this little community of people trying to survive versus them, all the rest of this city. Like it's us taking care of each other. I guarantee them that's happening.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're at right around the 2 hour mark, so we're trying to make this a little.
I don't know if that was all the kind of freedom you wanted to talk about though.
That was most of it. Is there something? Is there more you want to talk about?
No, it was that state of nature piece of this. When you mentioned it, I was like, oh, that's. I mean, there's a big part of that philosophy group that talks about it. That is like, this is imagine the most free you could be. It's like, yeah, that sounds terrible. Like, no protection against wildlife or nature or anything else. Like, and like I said, with the thing, it's like you're that free, you're free to die.
Yeah,
that's what you're free to do.
Well, I mean, that's basically the only thing you have to do in life is die. I mean, you can do guaranteed. And technically, you can do whatever you want in life, but you have to deal with the consequences. So, but the one thing you have to do is just you have to die at some point.
Yeah, and ideally, we would make the trip there. What do you say? As low suffering as possible. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get into that mindset of like recognize that everybody has different needs. They could be at a different state in their life, and just try to be more compassionate about stuff. It's hard though because I don't know if this is an American mindset or just like a human mindset, but it's easy to like self-insulate from everything, but totally be oblivious to the fact that you need other people to be able to self-insulate from other people, because in order for me to self-insulate, I still need to have somebody to build like my house, make my food, farm, do all these things so I can consume, so I can stay alive. I can't do it on my own. And just because I trade pieces of paper and digital money to get these things, those people still have value. And they help us in a lot of different ways. And I think that our current society is like treated people that help us like garbage. And it's just like, man, like, could you imagine like those people didn't exist? Like what you would have to do? Like, could you imagine like having to like have your own farm and like feed yourself? Like most people don't know how to do that, like at all.
No. And I'm weird, so like I looked up not too long ago like a fully self-sustaining property, like where you raise the, like you have to build it out just right with, and if you could do it on basically like half an acre, how you and like a family of 4 or whatever could survive on this half acre total land, house, and growing all the right crops and everything, and you could be so totally self-sufficient. But like you said, like most people couldn't do that, and we're definitely not doing that now. I think that sounds awesome. Like I would love to be able to have the space, like have land, and like build that out, and know that I could do it. Just honestly, I would put in all that work just to be like, I could if I needed to. Like,
yeah,
just to know it.
It would be cool, but then obviously there's creature comforts that I want, and so that's when this is like the societal trap, right? Because there's things that I want that I can't create on my own. It's like, yeah, if I really needed to, I probably could farm, right? Mm-hmm. But like I couldn't make a TV and farm. Mm-hmm. So, that's the problem. Is like I can't develop a video game, So,
yeah. And so I'm sure that those places are like self-sufficient in a way where like survival needs are taken care of, and then you're using your electricity and still connecting like to the internet for your stuff. You're still be able to pick up satellite TV if you wanted to. But if those things went away, you'd still survive. I think that's like the whole goal. Like, hey, as long as your property sustains you, all the rest of that stuff's cool. We kind of had that conversation while we were in LA because we both kind of hate the city.
Yeah, LA is one of the worst places on the planet, in my opinion. I hate that whole area.
But I mean, just in general, like you go in, you're like, oh, the traffic, and like, how do I get anywhere on these little streets, and like all that stuff. Like, just being in a city is like this pressure, stressful feeling for both of us. We like are from middle-sized towns near cities. Those kind of places is where we're from. So it's like being in the heart of any big city like that is like, oh my god, this is so not where I want to be. But then we were at this nice hotel, and walked over to this concert hall, went to this amazing concert, like walked over, got hot dogs on the street, like everything's right here. You're like, that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
But then like that block over there is like all graffiti and like terrible neighborhood, and like you're like, yeah, I just don't want to be a part of this. I want to be somewhere else.
Yeah, it's you can do it in like little bite-sized pieces. Like I like going to San Francisco, but I would never want to live there ever in my life. Want to live there, like.
All right, man.
All right, good conversation.
Appreciate it.
Next one should be a good episode. It'll be the season. I almost said series finale. We're not ending. We're doing the season finale. No. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of nervous about the number of people, but other than that, I think we'll be all right.
With 4 people.
That's the first time we've done that, so
That's true.
we'll see.
Well, first time you've done it. I do 5 all the time.
You do. It's the first time we
yeah,
have
first
done
time we have. Yeah.
Because I think you guys have a dynamic for one. Your timing is good. We still screw up our timing from time to time, and like, oh, he's ready to talk. I can back off and transition. We're working that out still.
Well, we keep it more respectful between the two of us. Like because we try to respect each other's time. Not that I don't do it on the other podcast, but when there's 4 people, it's like, well, somebody's gonna be constantly talking, and sometimes you want to get something in there, but you don't have time. So
yeah.
But don't worry, it's going to be 3 Marines and a civilian guy. So Eric's a Marine, by the way. Yeah.
So at least it really will only be 3 of us talking.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to get... No, Patrick will be fine. He's a good dude.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate y'all for listening and hanging out with us tonight, and we'll see you in the next one.
Later.
Bye.
It's Rebel, but I can't read anything else because it's too pixelated.
Oh, yeah. That was a dumb idea. Sorry.
Yeah.
I can't barely see you. Here, look at this. I still has in my mouth, so I was taking a second.
It's all good.
So it's Rebel. It's Rebel, and it's peanut butter caramel chip.
Oh, nice. Rebel's good because it's keto, sort of. Yeah.
It's definitely lower carb.
Yeah.
So like serving 10 grams of carbs in this thing or something like that. Which isn't bad.
No, I have quite a few of those in my freezer. Haven't had them in a while though.
I haven't been too strict on it this last week, so I'm like, well, whatever.
Yeah.